The mother of the Oxford High School mass shooter is facing cross-examination in a Michigan courtroom. Jennifer Crumbley is taking the stand after testifying yesterday under direct questions from her attorney. Now she's facing questions from the prosecution. This all stems from allegations that she allowed her son access to the gun used in the shooting and that she failed to recognize warning signs. And right now they're taking a quick break in the midst of that question. But I want to bring our ABC News Live Phil Lipoff and ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more. Phil, yesterday we saw Jennifer Crumbley questioned by her own attorney. Today, she's facing questions from the prosecution. Very different picture here. Absolutely. And Brian said it was going to be. I was sitting here watching the testimony with him yesterday, and he said, you just wait until they get to cross. And now we're going to have another discussion about how short the cross was. But you heard the prosecutor get up and say, hey, you said this yesterday. You said you were a good mom, and you spent, even a helicopter mom, spent a ton of time with your son. And then he went, well, you spent this much time at the horse barn. You spent this much time with the guy you were having an affair with. And then he brought up adult friend finder. She was talking to other people on this app to find people. So he was trying to prove that she was creating a false picture of the kind of mom she was. Brian, let's talk about the timing here. Phil said it, but this seemed pretty short for a cross-examination. What's happening here? Is it done?
That's what I want to speak with.
Diane, I'll tell you the same thing that I texted Phil. There is a stereotype that prosecutors are unable to adjust mid-trial, that they walk in with a plan and walk out with a plan. I would have thought that a prosecutor, after hearing Jennifer Crumbley's testimony, having the entire night to prepare for it, would have adjusted, added more, focused on different areas where she was potentially inconsistent, and we would have a much more robust cross-examination, but we didn't see that. For the most part, I saw a cross-examination that focused on, you're not a good mother, and I'm not sure how well that's going to resonate with a jury.
Brian, they also seem to be trying to go after her credibility here, pointing out inconsistencies about, oh, you said you took away his phone, but your son was shooting videos that night. Oh, you said you took away his gun. Now you're saying you just took away the gun range. They seem to be going after various areas of credibility, including now that these text messages are allowed in between her and her attorney. Jennifer Crumbley saying she was prepared to turn herself in, but then apparently texting her attorney, oh, they found us, and other little tidbits back and forth that the prosecutor's trying to say implies that she had no plans to turn herself in, that she was on the run. What do you make of those jabs, if you will, at her credibility? Does that go to prove a larger point that she can't be trusted in other areas of her testimony?
I think it goes not only to her credibility, but also goes to the point that if there were warning signs, you would not have seen them. You were off taking care of your horse to the tune of $20,000 a year. Some of that money could have potentially gone to the shooter's mental health resources or help that he was clearly crying for. If he was writing down in the book or talking about the help that he needed, you wouldn't have caught it anyways because you were focused not just on the one extramarital affair, but you're on a website looking for more people, whether it be in Costco during the school day or some other time. And so I think they're showing that her credibility, but also her focus was elsewhere. In terms of the messages between the attorney, what I'm really shocked at, and I'm surprised it didn't come in, I've organized for my client to be turned in at a specific time to be arraigned. And what that is, it's a process of talking to the client, but also talking to the prosecutor, who is also potentially talking to the detective. I may even also call the detective myself so that everyone knows we don't have to have this situation. So to me, this seems like a misstep by the defense of not properly coordinating not only with their client, but with law enforcement and the prosecutor as to when they're going to turn themselves in, because you can't organize turning your client in without actually talking to the other side.
Phil, what do you make of what the prosecution is trying to prove here? And what do they have to prove in order to get this guilty beyond reasonable doubt verdict that they're looking for?
Well, Brian talked about it yesterday. They have to prove that she could have foreseen this was going to happen. And that's why yesterday there was a lot of talk. Actually, her attorney did more of it than the prosecutor did today, talk about that meeting at the school on Tuesday when she came in. And she said in her own words, she was concerned, pretty concerned for the first time ever. They need to show that she could have seen this coming. And I am not a legal mind, but I watched every minute of this testimony along with Brian yesterday, and Brian and I are texting here as this is happening, and I'm saying I'm shocked. You know, this was about an hour of a prosecution. Brian was prepared for this really robust cross. You know, you say you're a good mother, but, you know, all of these things. How can you say you're a good mother? How can you look at parents and tell them you did everything right? She said she wouldn't have done anything different. I would have thought that would have been the first question. Really? You wouldn't have done anything different?
Right.
Look at the outcome. But there was none of that today. I think there's going to be a lot of conversation moving forward about how not robust that cross was.
Brian, yesterday there was a very big focus on that meeting. And throughout this trial, there's been a big focus on that meeting. A counselor calling the parents in, 2 hours before the shooting to say, you know, I'm concerned about your son. We found these drawings. Do you want to take him home? And so on. And the other big part of this seems to be the gun storage. Again, a huge part of this case. We didn't hear that much about that today under cross-examination. Why?
I have to imagine that the prosecution believes they have the information they need. Oftentimes, what we teach young attorneys is don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. Or if you already have an answer you can work with, leave it alone. Don't dig any deeper. The reason why I say that is ultimately, this cross-examination, this direct examination, it's going to be fuel for the closing arguments potentially later today if the defense doesn't have additional witnesses. And so maybe the prosecution says, you know what? I really liked her answer where she said, there's nothing I would change. So why would I go on cross-examination and dig a little deeper into that? Now, stylistically, I disagree. I think there could have been some more that they could have flushed out there that would have been beneficial for them. But in their mind, they can think, you know what? I'll live with the answers that she gave on direct examination. I don't want to have her try to clean it up on cross-examination by explaining it in a way that's better for her. I'll take that and move on.
What did you make of her responses to the prosecutor saying her son's friend said, you know, that her son had said he'd reached out to his mom for help and that, you know, she ignored him essentially, and then calling on these texts between the shooter here and his mother not responding to these, you know, essential cries for help from her son. You know, she's saying, I didn't see these text messages and I thought he was messing around. They're not calling them the messing around texts. What did you make of that defense and her response to that line of questioning? This idea that her son was crying out for help and she was ignoring him.
I mean, I'm not a fan of it. I mean, we talked a lot about this yesterday with Phil, and now Diane, you're with us. I consider both of you guys super parents. I've asked you guys for advice, being a young father myself, and I've always gotten great advice. In this situation, I think people looking at this as a parent just saying, what am I to believe? Am I going to believe that this child was lying to their friend and then wrote this kind of manifesto to have in their bag to lie and set up the mother in some sort of orchestrated way to challenge her credibility because he might have foreseen she'd be challenged by this in this landmark case? Or is the mother now lying about it today to cover herself? Either the shooter was a mastermind in a way we never thought before, or the Jennifer Crumbley is lying about not seeing these texts. I think I know which one the jury's going to lean to.
I'm out of time, but I want to quickly throw that back to you because despite all of that, no parent wants to be blamed for all of the sins of their children, right? Even my 5-year-old and my 2-year-old, I don't want everyone constantly saying, oh, well, she fell because you weren't watching her or whatever. Obviously, this is taking that to another level. But how careful does the prosecution have to be to go down that road?
I think they've got to be remarkably careful in saying, we're not just trying to demonize parents. We're not just trying to demonize this one individual. And I think they kind of told the line a little here, and maybe that's why the cross-examination was so short. But I think the major thing that they should hang their hat on is it's not about missing the signs, because yes, you can miss signs. Yes, you can be focused on your own life, and parents should have their own life. Go out, see friends, maybe not have extramarital affairs, but the rest, yes. But if there's a question mark as to the mental health of your child, maybe you don't buy them a gun. And I think that's the line that the prosecution can really put in the sand and say, that's where they really messed up.
And Phil, really quick, what's next?
Yeah, latest from the court, from our team in court right now, Jennifer Crumbley's defense attorney has rested her case. There are no more witnesses. All she's using is Jennifer Crumbley. She says she's prepared to go to closing arguments now. The prosecution says they need roughly a half hour to prepare for that. So that was it. Wow. That was it.
Brian, quick reaction to that?
I'm not surprised. You put on the defendant first, and in a case like this, I don't think there'll be anyone else. The prosecution wanting to wait a bit. I don't know. Are they going to change something new in their closing argument that they would have not had otherwise? I think we're going to see come, maybe after the lunch break, because we have a charge conference as well.
All right, we'll be watching. ABC's Phil Lipoff, legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer. Thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.